Welcome to Cultimatum, the podcast uncovering the dark realities of cults and human trafficking. I'm your host, Anonymous Andrew, and each week we dive deep into the manipulation, control, and courageous escapes that define these worlds.
And I'm Melody, Andrew's co-host. Having experienced the depth of a cult firsthand, specifically the House of Yahweh, I am here as an advocate for fellow survivors.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not reflect the official policy or position of Cultimatum or its affiliates. The content discussed on this podcast are based on personal experiences and should not be construed as factual or legal advice. Neither the host nor the guest are liable for any statements made during the episodes. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and seek professional advice where appropriate.
And before we dive into today's episode, we want to issue a trigger warning. Some episodes may cover explicit and potentially disturbing subjects such as sexual abuse, rape, human trafficking, suicide, and other sensitive subjects. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, Cultimatum fans, before we dive into today's episode, we have a quick favor to ask.
If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, could you take a moment to rate and review the show?
It really does help more people find Cultimatum and helps bring awareness to cults and human trafficking.
Thanks so much. And now let's jump into today's episode. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew. And with me tonight is my co-host, Melody. Hello, Melody.
Hello, Andrew. Today's guest is Shifrah Morgan, a survivor of a lesser-known but deeply controlling group based out of Shawano, Wisconsin, known as the Ramakul, also referred to as the Brethren or the Sis. The Ramas are connected with the Samaritan Roy Institute of Science and Technology. This group was founded by Rama, a leader who transitioned through several different religious ideologies from Hinduism, Christianity, and eventually landing on his own form of Judaism. Today, Shifrah is here to share her story and what life was like inside of the Rama group. Shifrah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. And this is a cult that I do believe we have not covered. So this is super exciting. So take it away.
Yeah, honestly, I think my generation or the group of kids that were born are right around the 1980s, we are all now in our late teens, early 40s, and we seem to be the group that's speaking out. Everybody else kind of got out and I don't know if it was just not a lot of space to speak about it. So people didn't talk about it or do anything about it. So it seems like just our generation now just seem to be there's quite a few of us now that are just popping up that are all my age, that all grew up around the same time I did there, that are now out writing a book. My brother does quite a bit of music, that kind of stuff, speaking out about it. So it's becoming more talked about in the last, I would say, couple of years. So yeah, I was born into it, 1982. So it was going on for about a good 10 years before I was born. So when I was born into the cult, it was just starting to kind of transition from Christianity with a Hindu twist. And he was very weird about cleanliness and that kind of stuff. So there were those kind of things that were he played into the rules and regulations of the cult and stuff. But he was pushing really hard. I would say right around the time where I was able to read and write, he was pushing Judaism hardcore and was really starting to talk in Hebrew, just get the congregation to do prayers in Hebrew and all of that kind of stuff, and really pushing it towards that direction. By the time I got out, or when I was kicked out, I should say, the Judaism was pushed. I mean, that was pretty much mainstream. There were people questioning right around that time if Judaism was real. How did all the miracles with Jesus Christ and all of these visions that he had of Jesus Christ at the beginning, what happened to those? And so he didn't really have an answer for that. And so
they never do.
Yes, no.
They never do.
control, like, bad mouthing people in front of the whole congregation. So if you asked a question, he would turn around and say things like, "You're doubting." And then he would get the whole congregation to like turn against that person. And so you had like him giving the okay for other people in the cult to belittle and abuse that person. And even entire families were targeted that way as well. So that's how he kind of like tried to control things. Yeah. And then as time went on and
Would
kids
you say
started
that was like a form of gaslighting?
exactly. Yes. 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 Honestly, so I'm gonna say this and like I said it a couple of week ago or so when I picked up my son from basic training. A couple of my siblings and my biological father met me out there because they were really close. So we were talking about politics and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, the reason I knew what gaslighting was because I grew up in the cult and it was like deja vu. Like all of COVID, it was like deja vu. It was like I was just living in a bigger form of it, I guess would be and as I started doing my research and going, what in the world is going on here? It just that comes down. The government's nothing but a big, huge cult. And their behaviors, propaganda.
You're muted, Andrew.
Yeah.
Gaslighting has been around for 50 years. It's an Alfred Hitchcock reference from a movie and a stage play from back in the day. It made a reappearance in our English language
Okay.
in social media, but people are using it now for relationships and on social media. But the real content of gaslighting and or the term narcissism and some of the other terms that we're hearing over and over and over again really apply to the cult world and the religious control freak world. So it does. So when we use, just to the audience, when we use the term gaslighting and narcissistic and all that, we're not just throwing that word around willy nilly like you hear it on all the other, like TikTok. You'll hear every other video. Oh, my boyfriend was a narcissist. This is real. This is the real
Yes.
gaslighting. Blah blah blah. Okay, I just wanted to
Yes.
clear that up.
Like literally, you would see something with your own eyes and he would turn around and tell you that that did not happen. And you would have to like say, "Yes, brother," and agree with him. And so when you would like leave, you almost had to like okay, I saw that, right? Like that really did happen. And as a little kid, everything like parents wouldn't be around. So if something happened or whatever, you didn't say anything. You kind of like went along with the story that he told or whatever it was. I mean, it's just, it's gaslighting in the truest form.
Oh, yeah. And it
And you
makes you
just
question your own reality.
And you
Correct.
described it exactly. If you see something in front of you with your own eyes and that person in the same room with you can convince you that you did not see that or that what you saw was not real, blah, blah, blah. That's a true form of gaslighting. If anybody really wants to go look up the Alfred Hitchcock, the play that started it all back in the 1920s, is exactly what he did. So, all right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That was one of the biggest forms of manipulation that he used. I'll give you an example, and I saw this a lot, but a husband would come to him and complain about something that was going on in the marriage. And he would like agree with the husband that he was right and kind of like baby the husband and yeah, yeah, yeah. And then at the same time, he would make a little references like, well, she's not the only female in the house, kind of belittling the other like girls or females in the house without really belittling them, but planting the seed, planting the idea, kind of reading the personality of the person standing in front of him, and then using that in a way to get them to kind of go along with what he wants them to do without physically saying the words. And then in the same like day or the same weekend, you would see him have a conversation with the wife, and the wife would be complaining and saying about the same story, the same fight that they had or whatever. And he would literally tell the wife, "Well, what are you doing giving it out? Like, you control things in the household, don't give it to him." So then when the husband or the father, ends up abusing the girl because that's the only other female in the house. He's literally the one that manipulated them into doing that in such a dark, sneaky, kind of evil way. And it ends up making it so that way the wife is jealous of the daughter, even though she's the one getting abused, and like won't protect the daughter because she's taking time away. Like it just mentally screws up every single aspect of it. And then on top of that, if anybody in the family was getting too close and he noticed, like, say, two siblings were getting too close and they hung out together all the time, he would purposely separate them into different families. So you could never have a security of any kind of relationship whatsoever. Mother, daughter, mother, son. He would find a way to get them to tell your secrets. And then he would say, well, this person said this, and turn it around and make it so you were so angry and mad at them, you wouldn't even go and talk to them. You would just kind of like shun them because that's the only way you knew how to deal with things. So you had like tons of people around you, but you were isolated at the same time. And so he used that as a big, huge, like, fear factor to keep everybody under control.
Okay, so what you were born into this cult? About take us about what age are we talking? Like, walk chronologically, walk us through that.
So my parents joined right when the cult started. My biological mother was going to college at Madison, the University of Madison, and he was going around preaching to different churches and different colleges, and he started getting this following of people all over the place. And then this one church that he was preaching at, he got two of the ministers there, or preachers or whatever they were called at the time in that church, got them to kind of join forces with him. And so they were traveling around to different colleges. And then he got a good enough following and he started doing it at people's houses. So my biological mother and actually a girlfriend of hers, ended up being my Aunt Carol, met him through the college and that kind of thing. And then my grandparents on my biological father's side met him through a church gathering at a Pentecostal like church thing. And they started following him. My grandmother ended up realizing that he was cuckoo and decided not to have any part of it. But my grandfather decided that he wanted to stick with it. And he believed that Rama had like Jesus reincarnated or something. And there were 6 kids. And my biological father decided to follow his father and stay in the group. So my grandfather and my biological father were in the group, and then my biological mother came in from following at the colleges. And then one day they were at my biological father's house, and he had a vision that said that both of them should get married. And so they got married. And well, I'm fifth in line. I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and then there's 11 of us total. Originally lived in Iron Mountain, Michigan, and that's where he would do his meetings at my grandparents' house. And then when I want to say it was right around 1972, 1973, something like that. It might have even been 74. He bought the property in Shawnee, Wisconsin, and that became the main compound. And we ended up, when I was like, I want to say like 5 or 6 years old, we moved to Shawnee, and we lived maybe 3 or 4 miles from the compound. And so we were there pretty much every day. There were 3 or 4 families that lived actually 2 families that lived on the compound that had houses on the compound. And then further down the road, there were a couple families that lived down the road right next to the compound. So that was like the Shawnee clan of the cult. And then you had people from Minnesota that would travel. There was quite a few families that were from there, the Twin Cities. And then I don't remember if it's North Carolina or South Carolina. There were a couple of states from over there that people traveled to the compound every weekend. So they would get there Friday night, and then we wouldn't leave. And we were pretty much under his control the entire time until he released everybody on Sunday morning or Sunday. And that could be at 1:00 in the morning on Monday. It could be 4:00 on Monday morning. It just depended on what he felt like that weekend. And then on Wednesday nights, the Shawnee clan would get together and have their like church or whatever. So that was pretty much, we did a lot of work. We pretty much were the amount of things that we did to that property to build bigger buildings, bigger, like just amazing structures. You wouldn't believe how big that building is, like on that
But you did
compound.
this all for free.
All
Like
for
it was
free.
all
Yes.
part of being part of that community or commune or compound. You worked
Yeah.
as a commune to build these buildings. Did your parents have work? Like, did they have a regular job? I mean, that must at some point, somebody needs to be contributing money to
Yes.
this.
So my biological father did have a job. He was a mail carrier, a mailman. So actually, it was kind of fortunate or unfortunate, however you look at it. He wasn't there a whole lot because he did work so much because he worked Monday through Saturday. And then on holidays or whatever, he was there at the compound a lot. But he wasn't there a whole lot. He was more separate because of how much he worked. But yeah, so they not only did we give our time and materials and all of that, but we literally supplied him with everything. We paid all the bills to every single one of his properties. I mean, he's got one, two, three, four, five, six properties in different trusts, $1 million, 6 million, $8 million houses that that he lives in that we have never lived in. We used to live when we would go to the compound to sleep or to like stay there for the weekend, we couldn't leave. So you would sleep and you literally slept on the concrete floor and you were lucky if you had a sleeping bag.
You see, this is again, I forget, but we're up around 80 episodes. Besides the fact that the law enforcement I have a problem with, they just don't go after cults. On the inside, all these cults, for the majority, I can't say all of them, but everything from JW to the Mormons, you always looked up and the elders and the higher ups all lived in these plush mansions or houses, or even just maybe they weren't mansions, but they were much nicer than when wherever the congregation was sleeping. And in some cases, you guys, like you said, you were sleeping on concrete floors. And I just never understood. And that's why, because I'm not an ex cult survivor, my mentality doesn't understand how you rectify that in your mind. Like you give it this, you see this guy's got $6 million mansions, but and you're giving him all his money, the money, and yet you don't have anything.
Nothing, nothing. And he got people like my biological parents took second mortgages, third mortgages out on the house. I mean, we went a whole year eating deer potatoes and deer cabbage and deer apples that my grandfather would bring. You know, like when you pull up into a gas station, you would see the deer food on the outside in between. So that's what he would bring to us for us to eat because my parents were so poor. We ended up knowing that if we did not plant our garden and we did not do that in the summertime, we
But
would not have food.
okay,
And eating pancakes or potatoes came by very easy. So we would literally make potato pancakes, every kind of potato you could think of we had because
help me with the trade-off. So what were you promised in return for all of this? For poverty, for not celibacy, but I'm just thinking of the Roman Catholic Church, they do the same thing. Living that kind of lifestyle, what were you promised? Were you promised 144,000 souls like I hear in every other cult, like you're going to go to heaven? Was this a doomsday cult? Were you promised a spot on the spaceship that went up in the world?
trying to get into heaven, just trying to get into
So
heaven.
you had to live a life of poverty to get into heaven. So on your worldly, earthly life, you had to
You
live
had
like
to suffer to learn all the lesson. Yes.
When
And
you're in a cult,
like,
Andrew, you believe that that payoff is worth it. You think that you are doing the right thing for the right reasons, and you believe that you are sacrificing for a better existence in the afterlife. You believe that.
yes. And you have to so it's really hard for people who aren't in a cult to it's kind of like I try to explain it. Somebody who has been in a domestic violent relationship, right? And they keep going back and you just can't understand, right? And you
Yep.
just don't see how they can but you have to think about it how they're thinking about it and where they're coming from and where their brain is at. They're literally brainwashed. And so they're not thinking like you think. So it's really hard, like as I talk to
Well,
more and more people.
that's why I asked what did he promise you early on that hooked you? Something got you in there. I mean, not you, your parents, because you
Yeah.
were born into it, but
Well, my
something hooked.
biological mother, she told me like it was the miracles that he performed. He would get them into this sing-songy, like hypnosis kind of like state, one through his preaching, because he would have that harmonic like thing going. And then he did a lot of singing, but not like full songs. He would do just certain melodies and he would get you into that. I mean, like she literally said her eyesight, she could see. Like he cured her of her like wearing glasses. It didn't last very long, but it did happen. But if you just look at the energy work of anywhere and you like pay attention to that, but you got to think also realize that the people who are coming to him, she was also in a trauma brain from her stuff as a child and her stuff in an alcoholic family. So she was seeking something, looking for somebody. And he just said all the right things at all the right time and just got her sucked in. And then once you're in there, it's literally, you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to be, and then you end up seeing something being done and you don't say anything. And that's just one thing. And then it piles up on another thing and then another thing. And then before you know it, it's the guilt is not only holding you in, but so now you have all of this. So you're a bad person. He's saying that you're a bad person. You have bad spirits. And it's just a pile of one negative, fearful thing after another. And he gets you to the point of like, you're just broken inside. He just breaks you. And until you're able to say, no, I'm not broken anymore, and I can think for myself, he has control over everything you do. And literally, they used to call him to go to the grocery store. They used to call him to go get gas. They used to call him to anything that they did or anything that they needed to do for us. If we needed to go to the doctors, they would call. If my brother broke his leg, he sat in the back of the car for hours waiting for them to get a hold of Rama to get permission to take him to the doctors. And then they couldn't take him to the Shawano clinic. They had to drive him to Milwaukee because, they're evil in Shawano. And really, they didn't want anybody to know like what was going on. So you weren't allowed to use doctors in town. You had to go to Milwaukee. And he used the excuse it's a Jewish doctor or, all this stupid stuff. But it really was to keep the people in Shawano or the locals knowing everything that was going on with the cult and keep it a little bit more secretive. So
Of
it was
course,
just like,
you don't know that when you're in it. You don't know that when you're in it.
no.
You believe the reasons he tells you, but after you leave, you're like, we have this epiphany. That's the reason he did that, or that's the reason he said that. You don't figure that out until after the fact. So at the time,
Yeah.
you believe that the reason is real, like, oh, we can't go here because these doctors are evil. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
And he's very good at taking real world situations and manipulating them. So that way there's always some truth to it. And if someone questions you, you can always have some truth, but it's not the full truth. And so everything that he fed you would be like, okay, so like propaganda that he used would be like, the United States, the Catholic Church is so evil and the outsiders are so evil because, they went in and ousted the Shah or this person. And yes, they did do that. But that doesn't mean like everybody on the outside is evil. It just means that that group of government people were evil, right? It's not like everybody, but he would like make it so that way the people on the inside would take that and think like every single person on the outside is out to get you and is out to, so when something bad would happen to you from somebody on the outside, it made everybody run back really fast to that comfort that they knew because you can handle what you know, but you can't handle what you don't know. And when you leave that controlling cult, everything, I mean, I didn't know how to go through a drive-through. I didn't know how to use a checkout. I didn't know,
We're going to get to that.
you know,
Were you homeschooled?
For the most part, yes. I went to 6th grade, I think Franklin Middle School, I think 6th grade for like a semester or a quarter. It was just a very short, brief period of time. And then another very short brief period of time. I think I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, I was a freshman when I got sent to live with my sister. She put me in there before I ran away. So that was the only schooling, public schooling that I got. Everything else was supposedly homeschooling, but it
Okay.
was a bunch of moms that got together in the group and they would split off different subjects and they would get these books from these homeschooling companies. And then they would go through the books with us and all of us kids shared tests. And so if one kid got an A, everybody got an A. So, really schooling, no. Um, I would say no.
Well, so I have a couple more questions, but before I ask them for a frame of reference, and sometimes we ask you this at the end, but I'm going to ask you in the middle. What, and you don't have to get into it. Just tell me, what age did you actually walk away from this cult?
So it had been the summer that officially broken away. I would have been 14, turning 15
Okay,
when I was officially hands wiped.
parents too,
Yes, everybody. Yes.
And you
like
were
Yes.
later.
and you were kicked out, right? So I don't know if you want to jump to that now. If not, we'll finish
Yeah.
telling the story.
So in the cult or whatever, beating people up was not a odd thing or an uncommon thing. That was something that he pretty much told everybody to do. So violence in the cult was not uncommon. I did not like it when I would see adults attacking children for no reason other than just having the sport of it. And
And I
there
was
were
going to
certain
ask you about violence towards children, and then I was going to follow that up with sexual abuse. But continue with your story.
yes. Um I I guess hindsight 2020. Um, I was pretty stubborn as a kid. I always asked questions like why. I needed to know why you wanted me to do something. And if you didn't have a good enough reason, you pretty much had to like pick me up and physically make me do whatever it is that you wanted me to do. So I was a pretty stubborn child. Number one. Number two, I don't know I believe every child is born with this, but I just had an innately sense inside of me as to what was right and what was wrong. And I remember being very little and looking at him and thinking, you're full of shit. I don't know where those thoughts came from, but I did literally have those thoughts. And I remember coming down the stairs and looking at him going, you don't make any sense whatsoever. You're just full of shit. And I just like, and I learned that word that was poop because we had gone over to an Amish family and that was the very first swear word I'd ever heard in my entire life.
I'm
So,
going to make a
That's
funny
impressive.
statement, and
That's impressive.
I think we're going to coin a new word. So in the gay community, they have something called gaydar, where so one gay person can tell another person that they're gay.
yeah,
I think in the cult community, I think we just came up with a new word. Shifrah has cultar. So she
there
can
you
like
go.
look at a person and tell them that they're full of shit and
Yes.
they're a cult
Yes.
leader.
Yes. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times he used to, like, I used to just look at him in the face, and most kids would like look down or, not make eye contact, or he'd be able to scare them or whatever. And I just never got scared. And I would make eye contact with him and just like look at him and be like, oh, okay.
You challenged him.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And he would say things to me like, your sins will be tenfold because you are more aware of things around you than other people. So, you know, he really enforced the idea of the fiery burning pit. If the earth opened up and it would be like, hell was a big, huge fire pit there. And you would just fall from where your feet were into the fire and you would stay there for eternity. And so that's what he like told us. So like in my brain when I was younger, that was like a legit thing. I did not want to go to hell because it was a big, huge bonfire in the middle of the earth that would open up and I'd fall in. So anyway, as I grew older, and into my like teen years, I would say, well, right around 10, 11 years old, my grandfather started sexually molesting me. And I also found out that there were quite a few girls my age that were also being messed with by other people, their fathers, brothers, and a few other people. And at that time, I had witnessed not only cult man knowing that it was going on, but me physically having the conversation with him that I knew one of the other girls was getting messed with. And actually, her father ended up going to prison for it. And that's on YouTube, his story or whatever that was. But I agree. At the same time, I also know that man personally, and I know how manipulated and brainwashed he was into doing all of that stuff. Not that it excuses it in any way, shape, or form, but just to put, all the aspects there. You know what I mean?
I
Um,
do. Yeah. Because
he went to prison.
yeah, I think what you're saying is under other conditions or circumstances, he may have made different choices, that he was influenced by the cult to make these choices that he may not have made if he was in his right mind.
Correct. Correct. So anyway, I saw all of that. I saw a lot of people getting beat. I mean, they used 2x4s, garden hoses, electric wire. I mean, it didn't matter. Whatever was in vicinity, you got beat. So violence was a big thing. So I started getting a little clique amongst the kids that were my age. And I wouldn't say we started targeting, but well, here's an example. One of the kids a couple of the little boys were playing on a cement slab. They were like leaning over playing with little anthills because we weren't allowed to have toys. So we didn't listen to music. We didn't have TV. We didn't have any toys. We literally ate, slept, prayed, and supposed to study. That was it. And that was usually reading the Bible or doing your studies. Anyway, so the boys were playing, and one of the gentlemen that was in the cult, he was in the cult because he enjoyed inflicting abuse on other people that were smaller than him. And he decided to kick the anthill into the boys' faces and then proceed to make them stick their tongue out so the ants were going up in their mouth. Well, me and my little group of people, kids, I think there was like 5 of us, we saw the whole thing from a little ways away, and we came upon him and decided to teach him a lesson the same way that's the only way we knew. So 2x4s, garden hose. And I think there was a cord or two that was involved. Anyway, we were literally beating him, us 5 kids beating him. And the cult man came walking down from the main house to where we were at the cement pad, and he saw it and pretty much congratulated us, told us good job, but then behind closed doors, pretty much said, knock it off. You are not allowed to do that anymore. You need to kind of disband. And then he tried to like weasel his way into the group and disband it like through the manipulation way, saying, well, this person said this and this person said that, and turning us against one another. Well, what he didn't realize was we were well aware of that already because we had seen it happen. So we knew it was going to happen. So it didn't really break us apart. If anything, it made us kind of unify a little bit. Well, I would say I want to say about a month after that happened, I was shipped off to live with my oldest sister. And my little brother, right underneath me, who was part of my clique, was shipped off to India. He had a school or a college that he had started in India that we were funding and supplying everything for. And there was a lady over there that was part of the cult and uh, over there, like not permanently, but she pretty much stayed over there and ran things or whatever. But whenever he got a rowdy kid or a bad kid or somebody that he couldn't really control, he would ship them off to India. And well, in one day, my brother got shipped off. Nobody said, none of us kids said goodbye. None of us saw him. He was just gone. And I literally got shipped off the same way to my oldest sister's house. And she was dating, I don't know if she was married to him at the time or if he was still a boyfriend. I really don't know, but he ended up being her husband. So it doesn't really matter. Anyway.
So these moves that you're being moved here and moved there, was this you're leaving the cult? Like you were being
No,
shipped?
I was being disbanded from, like, they were separating me and my brother.
Okay,
So
so
we
just to
couldn't have the
confirm, your sister was part of the cult then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's where
She had left. She had left for a little bit, but not really left. I call them fencers. They're people who leave the cult and go live on the outside world, but still believe everything the cult says, still calls the cult leader, still gives money, still does all of that stuff, and just believes that one day they can come back to the cult and they will no longer, as long as he's getting money from you, he will fuel that and say, oh, yeah, you're doing bad things right now, but it's okay. You can come back and be forgiven, blah, blah,
He's
blah.
not stupid. He kept you.
No,
He
he's
kept
not
you on a
dumb.
leash, a very
Yes.
long leash, but he kept you on that leash. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people that left the cult as the children that were born in it, a lot of those people that left, they left and they were living on the outside world, but they didn't really leave. So they were still calling him, still doing. And so that's what I call fencers. So there was a lot of people that were out, but not out, not mentally out, still very
Oh,
much,
POMO, that's what the Jehovah's Witness or PMO. No, POMO, because they were actually
Physically out, mentally in.
mentally in, yes.
yes.
Me.
Yeah.
Me. Physically out,
Oh, there we
mentally
go.
in.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with those terms?
That's the first time I've heard that, but
PMO is physically in, mentally out. POMO is physically out, mentally out. So there's all these acronyms, but that was a new one. So you were POME, physically out,
POME, yes.
mentally in. Yeah.
yeah.
God.
Yeah, so actually there was a lot of, I got into a relationship with my oldest sister thinking she was completely out, and I didn't find out until, quite a few years later that the whole time I was having that relationship with her, she was still calling him when major events happened. If she had to make a decision about something, she would call him, and that just blew my brain,
She
I
was
couldn't.
like a spy.
Yes, and they have them all over the place, it's crazy.
Of
It's
course they do.
crazy. It really is crazy. Anyway, that was my oldest sister. She actually was out, went to UW, GB and was going to college, and then she met this guy who was literally crazy, he's schizophrenic or something, he literally is crazy, and he got sucked into that, the cult hardcore, and the cult
Perfect for
leader
him.
took total advantage of it and that guy went off the deep end into the cult. And he had a very violent personality to begin with. So any episodes that he did have, they were violent episodes. So my sister literally brought a crazy person into the cult and she was there. And that I ended up moving in with was her and this guy.
So we got about 10 minutes. Let's begin to work our. So at what point would you consider yourself, you were physically out, mentally out, you were no longer associated with the cult, and where were you living?
So I would say physically out was when I got kicked out. So that was that was 12 when that happened. I was 13 when I moved in with my sister. I was 14 when I was turning 14 that July when they physically kicked me out.
Can you explain how you got kicked out?
Yeah, so I ran away from my sister's house and he came to the school that I was going to and I was in heathen clothes and my hair was down. I had jeans on and a t-shirt and my hair was down. And I knew I was going to get my ass whooped and I was going to be in some hot water. And so I ran away from the school. I literally just walked out, told me to meet him in the office, I believe. And I went to my locker and I just walked out the school door. And then,
Good for you.
yeah, I was labeled a runaway. They reported me as a runaway, and I was a runaway for about 2.5 weeks. And then I got picked up by the cops. The cops took me to the police station. My sister and her husband came to pick me up. I refused to go because he did scare the crap out of me. He just did. So my biological father came and picked me up. When I got back to the house, my biological mother told me that I had to call brother Rama and He told me that in order for me to go back, I had to stand up Sunday morning and tell everybody in the whole congregation that I was sorry for running away and I was bad and blah, 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 all of this other stuff. And I wasn't sorry. And I didn't want to go to the fiery burning pit of hell. So I told my biological mother no. And I also told her at the same time that I loved her. And she turned her back on me and refused to like look at me. So I just walked up the stairs and pretty much like walked out of the house. And from that weekend on, I couldn't sleep in the house. The next week, I couldn't be in the backyard. The next week, I couldn't be in the front yard. The next week, I could only stand by the mailbox. By the end of that week, I had to stand in the neighbor's yard across the street to like wave to my siblings and stuff. And then after that, I had no contact with them whatsoever. I went and stopped by their house when I turned 18 years old to just let them know that I joined the military, and I didn't get really any reaction. And then, yeah, I didn't have any contact with my biological parents at all whatsoever until 2012 when they came and asked me for forgiveness pretty much and if they could be back in my life that they had gotten out of the cult.
Very cool. I know Melody has something, and I just wanted to circle back because something you mentioned earlier, and I said we'll get to that later, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But apparently, you mentioned something like you didn't get the perks of some of the things, like going through a drive-through. So I guess you were shielded from some of the real things that society does as an everyday normal thing. Did you
Yes.
have a cell phone? Did you go to the movies? No, you had none of that. No, okay.
No, correct. No radio, no TV. We weren't allowed to have any kind of toys,
No
baby
internet.
rattles, nothing. All of our toys were made like we would make our own bow and arrows out of like the woods. We would go to the library. That was the only thing that we were allowed. We had to call, get permission to go to the library. We go to the library. We would get books about how to make bow and arrows, slingshots, and
So when you
um,
got to the military, is that when you were pretty much introduced to the rest of the world's technology, like cell phones and internet and computers and McDonald's?
I had a crash course between the years of where I was kicked out. I ended up meeting a woman who had just recently gotten divorced and she had 4 children. And so she needed a babysitter at night and
Perfect.
I needed somewhere to sleep.
There you go.
And she had no idea about who I was or anything like this. She just thought I was some weird Amish kid, you know, and I eventually just kind of stayed with her. And she would ask me questions like, "Don't you need to go home? Isn't your mom looking for you? You know, what's going on?" And I babysat for her for, I want to say about a month, 2 months, something like that. I would leave it when she would start to question. So she would quit questioning. And then I would keep up the act, disappear during the day, go to Shopko, Walmart, whatever, steal stuff from the store, whatever I needed. And so I ended up being with her while my biological mother ended up coming down one day looking for me or something like that, because I still had a little bit of contact with my biological siblings. And so they kind of knew where I was at, my siblings. And so my biological mother got that information from them and came down. And the woman that I was babysitting for, she asked my biological mother, "Hey, your daughter's like pretty much living down here. Do you want her back?" And my biological mother said, "No, she's not allowed to come back. We don't want her. You can keep her." And that happened a couple of times. And then my mom started dating my dad, and he was the jail administrator of Shawano. And he was like, "Hey, babe, you can't have some kid living with you just because we have to like report this. This is like bad." So he took me and my mom, who was the lady I was babysitting for, of course, back to my childhood family home and walked up to the door. And I don't remember hearing really the conversation. He walked up further than I did, and I stopped like halfway, but I could see him physically talking to my biological mother. And she pretty much told him the same thing. "No, I'm not welcome." He turned around with his hands shoved in his pockets. I could see that they were fists. And he told me to get the fuck in the car. And I went scurrying back to the car, happy and excited, but fearful at the same time. Got back to the house and he just pretty much said, "We got you." Or I went in the house. I remember sliding down the wall and him sliding down with me. and just saying, we got you. And from then on, I was just part of their clan. And he had 3 kids. She had 4 kids, boys, 2 girls. And then there was me. And they got married. I was 15, turning 16 the summer they got married. And I had a crash course about how to be my sister was makeup. She would get up an hour and a half before school started to do her makeup and everything. And so I got a crash course in society
Good.
very fast, during my 2 years in high school.
Tell us about the military quickly. You were in the military or you enlisted,
Yes.
but did you?
Yes, I joined the military, did a total of 8 years.
Good for you.
It
Thank you for your
gave,
service.
Yes, thank you.
yeah, it gave me stability. It gave me a place where I could channel my anger and my frustration that I had inside that I didn't know where to go or place or whatever. So it gave me an outlet through being
I think that's
physical.
a great
Yes.
idea is go to the military after a
Well,
cult experience. That if anything, that'll deconstruct you, that will.
people would ask me about basic training. I'd be like, it was a piece of cake. It was so easy. It was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much.
So, all right, Shifrah, we have to begin to wrap up. Melody, go ahead.
Before we jump to our final questions, and I just wanted to know, how did that conversation go with your biological parents when they came out and asked for forgiveness? And do you have a relationship with them now?
I do. So when they came to my door to ask for forgiveness, I had lost my first husband and I had just literally moved back to Shawano to be next to my mom and dad. And so when they came stepping to my front door, I was not in a good state. And so I pretty much told them I already had a mom and dad and I didn't want to know. And they were very gracious and very kind and said, that's okay. We understand. We would like any kind of relationship you would give us, any kind. So I do have a relationship with them. I have a better relationship well, I should say, before I told them my whole story, I had a better relationship with my biological father than I did with my biological mother because he was more forgiving and more understanding and more willing to listen to what I had to say, whether he agreed with it or not, where my mother was more judgmental. And when I didn't call her mom, she got very defensive and kind of aggressive. And that told me that she had not reached to the point where she could even understand the damage that she did to me when she turned her back on me when I said, I love you. And so therefore she couldn't understand what she did. And that was like a slap in the face. Like it pulled the rug out from underneath me because I was hoping that I would have her back. But that told me no, just because she's out does not mean that she's out and I have to baby steps. So I have a better relationship with her now because she's healing and I'm healing at the same time as a continuous journey. It never stops. So I went to their 50th wedding celebration because that was a big, huge feat for them, especially coming out of a cult and staying married and all of that kind of stuff. So I went to that. I still don't call them mom and dad. They're not my mom and dad. My adopted parents are my mom and dad, and that my biological parents will never hold that title ever again. They lost that title when they said they didn't want it. I know it hurts them every time I say their name to them, to their face. You can see the hurt on their face, but it is one of the consequences.
But these are the consequences. Exactly. These are the consequences.
Have to live with.
So I got to ask you the next question. I think Melody's chomping at the bit too. Where are you in your faith today? Because I didn't hear in the beginning that you were like religion was forced. I heard that there was some Hinduism, Jewishism, and Catholicism all rolled into one bowl. Where are you in your faith today? Do you have a higher power? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in organized religion? In your own words.
So I don't believe in any organized religion.
There you go.
You'll never catch me going to a church or anything like that.
Okay.
But I am very spiritual and I am very aware that there is an energy force. I went to medical school. I was a nurse, so I fully understand that our heart is a closed circuit. If anybody does any kind of wiring or electrician or anything like that, you literally can map out your heart. You have 2 electrical nodes So it's electricity. We are all energy and it flows and we are all connected in some way, some form. How? I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe like in, I
There's
guess,
some higher power keeping
yes,
all that energy in
energy
one. Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
If you clear your mind and you're able to really be in the now and not be in the past, not be in the future, and really absorb the now and be connected to that, you can open up so much. I've done a lot of
Well, that's the
meditation.
chakra, the chi.
Yes, and when I got into my late 30s, my body started breaking down from me not dealing with all the trauma, and so I had to really start dealing with my brain trauma and really start going through that, and once I started retelling my stories and retelling all that stuff at the same time doing therapy, like massage therapy, acupuncture, just releasing all of that from my body, it just I am no longer what they would consider fibromyalgia, MS, or lupus, or whatever they were trying to label me with. And it was just my body holding all the trauma that I had. Me figuring out that I can release all of that. And once I released all of that and figured out how to clear my brain and not be angry anymore. I mean, when you're in that kind of situation, there's an anger inside of you that I just cannot explain to anybody. It's a rage. And as long as you are in that rage or have that rage inside of you,
Part of your life was stolen from you,
yes,
and you'll never
yes,
get that back. But you seems to be you were going in the right direction, joining the military, joining this other family, and learning, becoming a medical student, and so
yes.
wonderful stuff. Melody,
I'm actually just going to do the final question. I think you answered all my other questions, but what an interesting story. My question is going to be our typical question that we end with our guests. If there's somebody that's listening today to your story and hearing this, and they're either considering joining a group or already part of a group, and they're starting to question whether or not that it's a cult, or they're starting to have some of those doubts, what would be your advice to them?
So I always say this to everybody, my children, anybody. If anybody comes to you and they want you to do something and they're trying to scare you into it or put a certain amount of fear into it, walk away. Turn around and walk away. All of these groups, they use some form of fear base to get you there. And then the love bombing on top of the fear base. So you have the fear, you know, you can't do that because of this, or you can't do this because of that, or, you get the feeling of walking on eggshells a little bit. You can't be 100% authentically yourself. As soon as you get that feeling, you turn around and you walk away. Because if you can't be authentically 100% yourself all the time in front of somebody, they do not have your best interest at heart. And they will use and abuse you, whether to get money or power from you, one or the other. That is what they'll do. So
Very good
that's my
advice.
thing.
Very good
very
advice.
excellent, very good. Wow, we are always looking for the next cult or the cult we've never heard of, and you certainly came through with that one because
Well, thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know
I'm
what I
I'm
mean?
sure.
sure I'm sure we could talk to you for 10 hours and still only have the tip.
That's the problem with
Yes.
podcasting is that, you're really limited to under an hour. Always this part two. We can always have you come back if you ever, especially if you ever write a book or if you do something to, start an organization to help other people and you want to promote it. You're always welcome back to come back and tell some more or fill in the
Yes.
gaps or whatever works for you.
I actually put your name out to another girl that was in the cult with me, and she just wrote a book.
Great.
Very good.
Glory, Let Glory Be, or something like that. I don't remember what the title is. And that's her story that she has been telling. And then there's another girl that I know that she is in the end process of writing her book.
Okay.
So yeah,
Excellent.
there's I sent your info. I was like, "Hey, I'm going on this
Bring them
podcast.
on.
You can reach out to them." They reached out for me, but here you go. So hopefully they'll get in contact with you. Yeah. Let glory shine. That's what the title is. Let
Just
glory
real quick question. Is this leader still alive? This man?
Yes, he is 86 years old, 87 years old.
Still,
And yes, is still alive. He had 2 children. His daughter passed away. His son is still alive, but does not talk to him in any way, shape, or form.
is there a cult?
Say that again?
Is there a cult? Does he have followers?
Yes, the cult is still up and running,
Of course it
full
is.
going. He
course.
owns businesses in Shawano, and all of these cult members work there for free. Nothing
Of
is done.
course.
Labor
Of course.
trafficking.
Nothing.
Labor
Correct.
trafficking, yes. And so,
Yeah.
so to the audience, this may not be the last you're going to hear of the Rama cult. We might be having some more people coming on and
Yeah.
telling their stories. So,
And maybe one day we'll have all 3 of you back or something. We'll see.
Yeah,
We're open
yeah.
to all sorts of, we'll have discussions. We'll have all sorts of ideas. So,
Yeah.
Shifrah, thank you so much for your honesty,
Yes.
your vulnerability, coming out and opening up like that, and
Thank you.
introducing us to a new cult. Thank you.
yes, we
Thank
appreciate you.
This is
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you.
And once again, we want to thank Shifrah so much for coming on the show and sharing her very unique story with us. Wow, what a story, Andrew.
Yeah, you know what? And I didn't get a chance to ask her, was her name Shifrah given to her? Was that her birth name, or was that a cult name, or both? And I
Yeah.
wish maybe we can find out and put it in the show notes. But yeah, what a really, really wonderful story, and a new cult.
Yes.
And just a little hard to follow her details. But
so much going on.
there's a lot going
there.
on. And Melanie and I were just talking before we recorded. Had we known, maybe this would have been a 2-parter. We would have been able to do this in 2 parts. And I'm not taking that off the table. Maybe we'll invite her back to get into more details. And or she did mention she's got 2 friends who are writing books who are from that cult.
Yes.
So maybe we will hear back from her or her friends. I don't think it's the last we've heard of her or her cult at all.
No, I don't think so either. And then we've got the two new terms. Andrew created the cultar. The cultar.
I like that. I when she said that, I saw this leader and I called this bullshit right on the spot. I was like, that sounds like cultar, and it just came to me because, well,
Right.
there's the bullshit. You ever hear the bullshit meter?
Yes.
Like you can pick out bullshit. She had
Yes.
the cultar meter.
Yes.
She could just feel like this guy was full of shit, and in a culty way. And I don't know. I think we're going to coin that term, cultar.
There we go.
Do you
I
have,
like it.
That'll be one of our ending questions. Do you have cultar?
And then the pony too, which is
That was a new
physically
one,
out,
too.
mentally in. So a couple new terms coined within this episode. So a very entertaining episode, though, and really such a unique story. And she seems that she's got, her life is together now. She's healed. She's done a lot of healing and deconstructing. So she's in a good place to be able to tell her story. So yeah, we appreciate it. It was a good episode.
Thank you so much for coming on. And
yes.
All right, so let's wrap it up.
Yes, and just I will add just what a blessing the family that took her in and adopted her. That's
absolutely.
I give them kudos, whoever they are out there, if they're listening. What an amazing thing to do for someone in that situation. So once again, we do want to thank Shifrah, and we want to thank all of you for tuning into Cultimatum. We do appreciate your support and our mission to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep listening to all of our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for more content and updates.
Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Cultimatum Podcast, where we dive deeper into these important topics.
And if you are a cult survivor and you're looking for any additional support, we recommend joining the Cult Escape and Healing group on Facebook.
Which you just renamed.
I did.
That is a new name. So those of our listeners who, I guess you probably know that already. If you're already a listener and you're in that group, you know that Melody has renamed the group.
Yes.
If you're interested in more of my work, check out my other 2 podcasts, Digital Dating, where I unpack the complexities of relationships in today's world, and The Weekend Rant, where I just tackle life's frustrations with no filter. And I got a couple doozies up there this week, so go check that out. Want to support the show? You can help us out by buying us a cup of coffee. Just go to the show notes and you'll see buy us a cup of coffee, and it will take you to a page where you can donate $5, $10, or $15. Yeah, I think that's the increments, and anything that you can give us will help with the production of the show.
And as always, we appreciate those who have donated. And of course,
yes.
As always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.